Blockchain gaming will change the nature of gaming in just a few years. Much as the internet completely changed video games and how they're played and how we play them and took it to the next level. And yet even though that's going to happen, most people don't even realize that this is coming. Now, today we're joined by Dan Khom from SIDUS, who is leading a project that is on the forefront of the blockchain gaming space. And I think you're going to be really excited to hear what he has to say about where their development is at. We'll get some updates from him on how this game is progressing, as well as ask Dan where he sees blockchain going. Do note, this is not a sponsored video by SIDUS in any way. I reached out to Dan and asked him to join us because I'm a crypto investor and I like making massive gains. And in order to do that, I need to have good information on the projects that I'm interested in. And SIDUS is absolutely one of those projects. I'm invested in SIDUS myself, and I like what I am seeing so far. And this interview format is the very best way for me to get information on where things in the company are at and the people behind it and where they're going, though I'm not specifically, and I almost never specifically ask the founders about the token that itself. This gives me a great insight into the company and where the progression is going and helps me make more informed decisions. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. If you are looking for crypto news without context, or you're looking for panic selling and FOMOing in, you can find that in a lot of other places, but not here. If you, like me, came to crypto because you realize the potential for life-changing gains over a 4 to 8 year period and are looking for discussions on becoming a solid, unshakable crypto investor, well, you're in exactly the right place in the right family, the Rainmaker family. The reason I created this channel is because once I was new to crypto 5 years ago, and back then, actually it's 6 years now, I was looking for a crypto channel and a network or group that understood crypto as an investment and discussed important things like investment cycles and project. Had amazing founders come join to talk about the project, look at the pros and cons of the projects, the risks, and guesses the upside if it came together. Well, I didn't find that, so we created it. And I say we because it's not just me anymore. It is a family of rainmakers, and you see them here in the chat. You will see some in our free Telegram group. The link to that is below, and you will definitely find them in our private Patreon group that allows you access to our Rainmaker private Discord, which is where the best discussion is at. Do know I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Now, if you haven't already, make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show. I'm so excited to welcome Dan as our guest. Dan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Rain. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. Lovely introduction, man. It sounds reasonable and legit. That's good.
Isn't that where gaming is going? Like that it's going to completely transform gaming?
Well, absolutely. I mean, since the last interview we had with you, we've seen a lot of massive companies getting into the game right now, including Epic Games, including Ubisoft, and some others as well, right? So, I mean, that clearly gives me a clearer message that the big giants of this gaming industry are looking at it with a temptation to get in as soon as possible. And all of them are expecting some sort of regulatory framework to work with because nobody understands how they can work with the NFTs at this stage as yet, because not every country is introducing the framework, unfortunately. But clearly, there is a good sign. Everyone is trying to get into it.
I remember, so this isn't my first market, though a lot of the audience, this is their first bear market, and the smart ones are still here with us and stick around. I remember in the last bear market, I stuck around, and it was boring as hell. But I was so excited about this idea of blockchain gaming, but there was only a couple companies really building anything yet. One was Axie Infinity, another was Gods Unchained, and there were just maybe 4 or 5 really serious projects. But it was kind of like blockchain gaming 1.0. And it was cool because my investments did extremely well in those. Well, we find ourselves in a crypto winter again, and there's probably about 10 serious players building what I would call blockchain gaming 2.0, and maybe even 2.5, because you have a number of different things going that's really exciting. We were talking a little bit beforehand about what you've been up to, and it just blew my mind. because so much has changed from our last interview. In our last interview, you had only released SIDUS.com, or where your initial game was. You hadn't rolled out Xena, and you had talked a little bit about where you were going, but you've done so much in the meantime. It has me excited for where things are going. But for those completely unfamiliar with SIDUS, can you give us a background about where you're, what SIDUS is and where you're going?
Sure, no worries. Well, SIDUS Heroes, or SIDUS Heroes, depending how you call it, it's up to you. It's a game publisher, 2.5, which is building a highly comprehensive AAA gaming experience for the crypto community and the Web2 players as well. So our main objective and the task is to build interesting games, not just copy and paste concepts from the existing games out there, but actually work on the innovative approach and try to build games that are different from the existing concepts, as I said before. And as you've mentioned before, Xena is one example of it. Xena is a battle royale RTS strategy, which has a 6-minute session, and it's super easy to play, and it's easy to teach people how to play that game. Because if I'll ask you a question, would you be able to teach your wife how to play StarCraft within 6 minutes? There is no way you can learn how to play StarCraft so quickly. But Xena is designed to be a simple game, which is getting constantly improved. We're rolling out a lot of patch notes, and there'll be much more content coming up soon. There'll be a large variation of different robots and characters that you can choose from, and it's growing up as a community. I mean, we started from around 1,000 players. Now we have more than 10,000 players on the daily basis. That is growing up. So
10,000 players playing daily
so
on average.
We are pushing marketing really hard in India right now. So I'll go back to the previous statement that I've made. So because we don't want to jump from one topic into the other, but
Sure.
So we are as a publisher, and we try to build games. We don't rush. We don't want to rush into building things quickly, because in the end of the day, you want to build an addictive game that is easy to understand, and it's has a certain experience, a certain vibe that other games would never give you. And it takes time. I mean, good games take a long time. The best example I usually give is Genshin. It's one of the best action RPGs out there right now. But it took them 6 years to build that game with a budget over $200 million. And nobody knew about these games until they've actually launched the product itself. And now it's generating billions and billions of dollars of revenue. And a single patch note of Genshin costs hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So good games take time. And our main objective, as I said, is to build not just a random set of games, mini games, games that would be playable once, maybe twice, and pretty much, go into the archives or the history, but games that will be playable for a long term. And we've got a lot of games in the pipeline right now. So Xena was the second game that we've recently released.
That one is fun and addicting. One time when I started playing, I found myself all of a sudden 6 hours later still playing. I was just like, oh my gosh, because I was figuring it out and I was winning almost every match and just had a lot of fun with it.
Well, it's on the Google Play right now because Android is the most usable device in India and the Asia Pacific region overall. 90% of the devices are Androids there, so everyone uses the Google Play as the main source of traffic and downloads. Apple Store is coming up as well for the Xena itself. And the reason why we've launched Xena is because it's a perfect application to generate a substantial traffic of users into the game itself, after which people will get transformed into the 2.5 users, because they would understand how games can not just be play to earn, but games can be free to play, but also have a layer of the blockchain being integrated inside of it. So once you play Xena, you don't even notice you play an NFT game until you actually realize that you win some valuable assets or robots or chests with certain elements of resources inside of them, and you can sell them on the secondary marketplace. And that's where the realization comes from, right? So people understand, oh, actually, I don't just play here, but I can earn. And it freaks them out, first of all. I mean, they they get confused, but then they really enjoy it. They really enjoy it. And I mean, the community is growing exponentially. Like, if you look at the Xena chat in the Telegram or Discord, we've started from 100 to 200 messages a day, right to a couple of thousand of messages a day, where people communicate, they ask questions, they make reviews and videos, and it's constantly growing, right? And this is what we do. So the Xena is a perfect use case for us, which we are currently using as a I guess example as to what sort of games SIDUS heroes can build. And we have a lot more coming up. We have a very interesting game coming up, which is a hyper casual game, Astrali 2.0. It will be accessible on Telegram with one click, so you don't even need to download anything. And I mean, many game studios out there, they don't even realize Telegram is the most powerful source of traffic with millions and millions of users. Nobody really uses that source of traffic in the gaming aspect. So we decided to launch the game experience of the blockchain a free-to-play game in Telegram, and that will be launched very soon. We've tested it. It went super well. I mean, the first version of this game that was tested by our community had an amazing feedback, and now we are realizing that this can potentially grab a lot of attention from the other users as well. The shooting industry is huge. I mean, look at the current companies. The Counter-Strike is selling skins for hundreds and thousands of dollars, right?
Which is funny because you don't have true ownership with Counter-Strike, and it shows that if you do your items right in your chest, and people don't even know they're NFTs, but like they feel ownership of those, then they will spend massive amounts on skins if they like the game. And absolutely. Counter-Strike proved that NFTs will do well. I just think people got a bad taste for NFTs because a lot of projects launch and they're like, oh, and still we see some of it. There's one really big gaming company that's like drops NFTs for like 2K and stuff, and your chance to really earn back that investment is almost nil. And then they even came back about, well, you're playing our game for fun and not turning investment. It's like you're charging $2,000 for your NFT package. Are you kidding me? Just kind of like the weird greed. But if you give them free to play, let them earn stuff, and then they accidentally get something of value, and you kind of show them how good that is, I think you'll create. It's kind of like under promising and over delivering.
Well, we should forget about play to earn mechanic. I think it's the past. It did extremely well, but we have to learn a lot of mistakes from it. And I mean, it's clear for me that the play to earn mechanic can be applied potentially to the luxury sector. And we've seen a successful case with the Bored Apes when they've launched this hyper casual game where you had to access it via using the special ticket, right? That could cost you a couple of $1,000. But that's the past. I mean, who can do it really?
That can't really, integrate into the existing system.
It's not a mass market. Well, it's not a mass market.
You can only get like people who are crypto rich really being able to buy into that. You can't, like you said, get the mass market. When I said play to earn, I meant free to play, which is the model that has really gone viral. And then if you couple some kind of free to play with NFT backing that gives people true ownership, that's what I think is the future of gaming, that the games that do that well and have a game people want to play will go massive.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, there is no doubt that this industry has a huge potential. I mean, we clearly see a lot of people supporting this industry. I see a lot of VCs that are still big believers in the gaming industry. It's going to prosper in the next bull cycle. I'm pretty sure about that. We've seen Alex Becker is constantly saying things like, gaming industry still has a huge potential, and do not underestimate it, because the time to shine will come. It's just a matter of time. So I think we're on the right track. It's just we have to build. Like seriously,
Yeah.
man. Like no matter how many words you're gonna say and how much you're gonna promise, right? You're gonna build stuff. If nobody plays your game, then you can build it for yourself. You're more than welcome to, right? But nobody cares, right? So, I mean, the hardest part is to get the players on board and make them interested. That's the
That's
hardest part. Yeah.
two things that astonish me about our early chat and what I'm learning here is, number one is how many players are playing Zena, and that is absolutely massive for a bear market, because generally what I saw last bear market is probably on a daily playing base. Axie Infinity was probably at 50 to 100 active daily players last bear market. Of course, last bear market, most people didn't know who Axie Infinity was. I had invested early in Axie and followed their whole trajectory. And it was 2 years before money came into the market. When it did, this game called Axie Infinity absolutely took off. So the last bear market was absolutely brutal on blockchain games. This bear market has been absolutely brutal on blockchain games, but 10,000 active daily users is crazy. And secondarily, I didn't know anything about the gaming usage in India. Talk to me more about that, because I had never thought of India as a gaming market.
Sure. Well, if you type in Xena /India or something like that in the YouTube, you will see that we're getting promoted by the biggest gamers of PUBG and some other games in the Indian market, and they're promoting and pushing Xena very hard there. So we've signed an exclusive partnership with quite a few massive and well-known stars in the gaming industry in India, and they're becoming our ambassadors in a way of promoting Xena and getting a lot of attention around it. Yes, Indian market is famous for two things. It's famous for the biggest number of strategy players. So it has around 34 to 36. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my statistics that I've recently saw in the worldwide analysis. It's around 34 to 36% of the entire strategy gamers that are located in India. So these people love playing games. They love playing games. That's the biggest gaming category for them. The second one is the shooting games. They love PUBG. They love Fortnite. They love these sort of games. So massive, huge potential for the shooting games. So we see potentially for SIDUS Heroes as well. That's the major market for our shooter that is coming up. Our third-person browser shooter that is going to be available very soon as well. So those markets, especially in the Asia Pacific region, they're highly attractable for our company in general. We're getting a lot of traction right now. The metrics are showing us outstanding result. The retention rate is great. So people, come back on the first day, which is more than 50%. People come on the third day. People come on the 28th day as well, which is a great indication. I mean, the retention is a huge indication. If the game has a retention of more than 30% on the 28th day, that is a clear indication of success. That means that if we push this product towards the mass market and we promote it everywhere possible, out of 1 million downloads, potentially 5 to 6% of users will get subscribed to the premium subscription and will pay us money and do some in-app purchases, which could potentially generate around $700,000 to $800,000 a month of profit itself. And that's just for Xena, right? So,
but that also gives you funds to continue development, to develop the higher level games.
Precisely right. So
you do have a bigger picture
for any Web3 company, sorry to interrupt you, is to be self-sustainable, right? So they should not go to the market and constantly seek for funding. Eventually, they should be generating revenue that covers off their operational expenses and allows them to build stuff on the constant basis, right? So they can do experiments. If one game doesn't work, it shouldn't stop them from continuing on, right? So, and we've seen a lot of unsuccessful cases when some massive game studios that raised $50 to $50+ million, they've concentrated on a single game and they failed. They epically failed, and just nobody knew anything about this game, and nobody wanted to play these games at all because they haven't spent too much money on marketing, or perhaps they didn't even know how to promote the games because not everyone possesses the knowledge on how to promote Web3 games among the Web2 users, right? If I ask you a question, how do you promote it among the Web2 users? What do you do the first? Like, do you just sign the deal with the Twitch streamer, or you go to the blogger? And how much would it actually cost you? That's the question. So, yeah.
That's a great question, and that's not my focus. My focus is finding those companies like SIDUS
Oh, yeah. I'm just saying,
and make sure you guys know what you're doing, which clearly it's going well. That was astonishing. Now, one thing that I think about on why the amount of money that will come into blockchain gaming, people don't even realize or think about, is I think about what happened with Axie Infinity. And my Axie Infinity journey started in January 2019 when I invested in their land sale. And I thought, okay, this idea of land in a video game, I think will go really well. My wife thought it was a crazy, silly idea and that I had just invested $4,100, that I might as well have burned it and thrown it in the garbage. And it turned out to be a very profitable investment because this idea of asset ownership and true asset ownership did extremely well. And when money later came into blockchain gaming, that investment, I sold it 100x, but it did about 3,000x total. And what was crazy is the amount of money that came in, not just from gamers, but businesses into this idea of blockchain gaming and true asset ownership. Now, I don't know if this is something that keeps you up at night. It's something that keeps me up at night. Do you think this idea of ownership will bring even more money than we saw last time into gaming as the games get more caught up to what people are really expecting in the gaming market, so that they can hit true mass adoption? Do you think that idea of ownership will bring more money into gaming than the world has even considered, because they hadn't thought about the ownership aspect of it, and that you will have businesses investing inside of games, something we've not seen before?
Well, I was going to search for a quote coming from the BlackRock recently. The CEO of BlackRock recently had an interview and was just basically making comments about the Bitcoin and its potential and crypto assets, etc. I mean, it's great news that obviously BlackRock is applying to the trustless ETF and stuff. This is great, for all of us, etc. But what I found interesting was his realization and acceptance of cryptocurrency as the hedge against the inflation. And assets in the metaverses, in games, or in any decentralized finance products, or anything really in the crypto industry, they have people's faith behind them. If people believe that the skin is rare and it has a value of $100,000, and it's awesome to have one, nothing can stop people from selling it for $100,000 and keeping it in the special storage on the MetaMask or a Trust wallet, and placing it as a picture on their wall behind me. Anything really. It's the people's faith. Why do we value Rolexes so much, and why do they increase in value so much every year? Why do people collect sport cars and believe that Ferrari back in the 80s is more valuable than the new Ferrari Spider 4i8 in 2023? It's because, people's faith is the strongest weapon we potentially possess. And our understanding that ownership in the virtual space is going to be equal and even more bigger than the existing assets is strong enough to prove that eventually, one day, people will start using augmented reality glasses like we've seen from the Apple or some other companies out there, and they start to realize that the actual virtual world is a cool place to be at. It's useful and it's helpful. And once you put on the AR or VR glasses on, you can talk to your banker or your accountant sitting on the island among the palms and having fun, right? And potentially this land or a table that you are sitting, or a chair that you are sitting on, could could be valuable, and it's all about your ownership. It's hard to it's a philosophical question, man. Like, we've seen a lot of fails recently, and I'll be very straight with you. I was very disappointed with the recent blow up of some NFTs that we consider the blue chips. I'm not going to name them, but that was like a massive depreciation of value that we saw in the market. And that's all because of the progress of technologies like Blur, right? So we've seen a huge technological progress coming from the marketplace of Blur that allows people to leverage, allows people to lend against the NFTs, allows people to, short them in a way. So it completely destroyed the perception that NFTs are stable enough to keep your assets or money inside of it, and it's becoming a tradable asset. It's becoming like a coin that you could trade on the second basis, buy and sell and make a little bit out of each transaction. So because of that, sentiment and perception got destroyed. Now the question is, how do we preserve the value of assets if it becomes a tradable coin on the daily basis? Because Rolexes, they're not tradable on the every second basis, right? So maybe there are a couple of Rolexes being sold on the daily basis, or maybe 100, but they're not being sold in billions and billions of dollars of value every single day. It creates volatility and fluctuation, which scares people a lot. So, yeah.
I think we'll continue to have some volatility, kind of like we see with like Pokemon, the value of even Pokemon cards that are collectibles. Because I think part of the reason some of these NFTs and some of these items from games will do so well in the future is the desire to have flair, the desire to have some kind of like something that sets you apart. Like some rich Saudi, that has oil money that's 27 years old and grew up playing video games. He's going to want to show everybody what his value is and what he values. And so he might spend like the guy that spent $100,000 on Counter-Strike items in the game, right? Because it's really just a statement of, look at me. And it's kind of like his way of buying a Ferrari in the way that he can show it to everybody inside of the game through the knife skin that he has. It's worth $12,000 alone or whatever. And so that's why I think some of these NFT items, some of these gaming items that become super desirable will have a value. What's cool to me about it is the transferability anywhere in the world. So you have a true marketplace and you can put these things up for sale, and you don't have to just sell them to somebody local because shipping, it might get lost in shipping. It can instantly transfer to somebody all across the world, which I think will give us a global marketplace like we haven't seen before. And some of that Axie Infinity did some things right, as well as much as it was kind of like blockchain gaming 1.0, and it was pretty simplistic. You had the ability to sell these assets on a marketplace to anybody in the world could buy it, and it could transfer like that and exchange the value. And they really only made their money on the transaction tax. I think that was their only source of income after their initial sales, and still reached $1 billion in revenue, which is what most gaming companies, most games aspire to, is like, man, can we make $1 billion with this game? That would be amazing. And Axie Infinity did that with a fairly simple game and a fairly simple economics model of let's just charge a transfer.
Well, I gotta ask you a question. Like,
sure.
Speaking of Axie Infinity or some other well-known companies out there, there was a hype. There was definitely a story of success, but there was no progress further. The problem with the Web3 games out there is that they get this hype around them and they really grasp it. And maybe they're popular for 1 year, for 1 month, for 1 week. But there is no further continuation of that progress. They don't really understand, or potentially they don't have enough expertise to keep that success consistently. And, why is Nike always in a demand, or Adidas, or Ubisoft, despite their fails recently, or Epic Games, or some other games out there? Because they know how to grab this success and convert it into the stability. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, many of us in the crypto industry are failing to do so. We get this success and we don't know how to keep it. because there is a communication problem with the community. We don't know how to merchandise things. We don't want to franchise things. We're too greedy sometimes to get as many royalties as possible instead of really pushing these royalties towards the progress of business and development.
Yep.
Many problems, right? Many problems. And this is why Justin Bieber is buying a Bored Ape for 1.5 million, now selling it for 50, or like not selling it, but they're getting a bid for $56,000, right? I mean, what's his impression right now? He lost almost $1.4 million or something like that in a matter of a year. Like, would it get him back to believe that Web3 industry is still attractive for him after the massive loss? A big question.
He'll
Yeah.
come back around. It'll just take the next up cycle before he really realizes. Because what's funny is this cycle of crypto still integrates with blockchain gaming, but it won't in the future. Blockchain gaming will develop and run a life of its own that won't be tied so much to Bitcoin, but that's still a ways away. You did hit the nail on the head, though, with your hammer, which is, look, a lot of the early blockchain gaming companies were an idea by people that didn't really know very much about building long-term sustainable games. And they had this idea that these assets would be good, but they weren't professional game developers with a long-term vision. And so Axie Infinity, even though they had Animoca Brands come in, buy them out, they made a whole bunch of money, and they hired a bunch of economists with PhDs, and it's like, how do we make this game grow from here? And what do we do long-term? Because we're not sure what to do. I wasn't in those meetings. That's just what it looks like from the outside. And whether Axie, what is funny is even with the hype that's gone down tremendously, Axie still makes a ton of money, even in this bear market, off their transaction tax, because there are still a bunch of people playing it. And so they proved that this model works, but I think Axie was blockchain gaming 1.0. And if they don't evolve to be blockchain gaming 2.0 or 3.0, the users are going to leave for better games that are coming, because now you're seeing the giants of the industry wake up and say, oh my gosh, this is a thing. Now, some of them are going to get it wrong. And I do think that there's a major game out there. It has 4 letters in the name of that company. And I don't think they get it. They're launching these big NFT sales and you can't really make your money back. And so they came out at a good time last cycle. So they made a bunch of money this cycle. But I don't know that they're going to stick around, even though they're such a big name in it, because I don't think they get the future. And when you and I we met through a mutual group on Telegram, and you suggest we meet up at NFT NYC last year, and I talked to you. I was like, oh my gosh, I really like Dan. And I think Dan gets the future of where this is going. You're building this bigger kind of MMORPG, but those take a long time to develop. So you decide to make little segments that kind of stair step that way. That way you could build a community on your way to there. Because I think MMORPGs integrated with blockchain gaming is the future. And that you're not having to roll out, because one of the problems with games is, like you mentioned, you roll out a game and then like people come in, they play it for a while, but if it's not this evolving world, they then leave to play a different game, unless you build a really good MMORPG like World of Warcraft that is still around today, and it's been around since like 2003, 2004. And so you've got 20 years and they continue to develop it, and they have this big user base that rolls forward, and new people come in and some people leave, but they've been one of the biggest games continually for 20 something years. And it's going to get even more so like that when you introduce true asset ownership. Because right now, if you play World of Warcraft, you can't sell your stuff unless you sell it on the black market. If you get found out, they shut down your account.
Reasonable to say that. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's important for you to understand as well that by releasing an MMORPG, it doesn't mean that there will be a success for the Web3 company. So it's almost pointless to say that an open world will become popular just because it exists. We've seen a lot of use cases from the big giants of the NFT industry, like Decentraland, right? And I mean, I love this project, and it's great, but the number of live users that are playing it on a daily basis is getting reduced, right? And people don't really appreciate that open world itself, because the problem with an open world, you have to create utilities and use cases inside of it. And how do you create them? or you create interesting games inside of it, right? So instead of us going into the full-on development and production phase of this huge open world MMORPG, we decided to create, as you said, segments of different games that will create a traffic of users and will create a substantial community that will eventually be joining our metaverse, an open world or MMORPG, whatever you call it. So that's really important. So we don't want to spread the attention too much among the open world and make people run around with no purpose, but actually want to build games that will be highly addictable and with an interesting gameplay. So as I said, Xena was the second game that was coming up. We have 3 more coming up right now. So we have a hyper casual Astro Rally, accessible from Telegram, easy to access, super interesting to play, and it's addictable as well. We have Tembazar, which is a third-person browser shooter, accessible game from browser, no needs to download. You just access it from any browser and you get into it. It's an amazing graphics. We will present it on the 12th of July at 2 p.m. UTC. So there'll be a special presentation on the YouTube. So we'll present the whole gameplay. I will be playing myself with my co-founder and business partner, Roman Pavlotsky, who is a game producer of that game. So we'll be playing with another 15 members of our team, and we'll be showing you how it actually works as a multiplayer and as a gameplay itself. There is another game that is coming up. It's called Social Deduction Game. It's a category of a game. It's called Falconium. We call it Falconium. So it's a special game studio that we've recently launched, and it's a highly addictive game. Social deductions games are very popular these days. The most famous one that everyone knows, it's called Among Us. You maybe have heard about it, right? So 500 million downloads from Google Play. Super interesting, and people love it. The reason why people play these games is they love socializing. They don't just love socializing on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. They actually want to play games and socialize. So that's why social deduction games are great for people to gather together and play as a team to find out who is hiding behind the scenes, who is a wizard, who is a killer, an assassin, or a mercenary, trying to solve puzzles together. And the unique part of our Falconium game, it will have a video streaming technology. So basically, we've created our own Zoom inside of the game. So when you play this Falconium game, you will see all of your team members in the team via the video, and you would be able to communicate to them via the microphone as well. That makes a huge difference comparing us to the Among Us, because Among Us doesn't have that video streaming technology at all. So we're looking forward. It will be launched in September 2023, the first version that will be accessible for our community members. Yeah.
That's amazing, some of the stuff you have coming up. We got a few questions. This is live, and we have some questions in the live chat. Max, I kind of summarized your question in a different way, but Max had asked, interesting to focus on the Indian Asian market first. Can you elaborate on this specific focus, which we kind of went over? Eugene asked, can you buy nodes for this game?
Yeah, so our game is, the first question, obviously, do we answer on the Asian market? Why do we pay attention to that? So the Asian market is interesting because it can potentially create a constant flow of users, which will be creating a constant 24/7 gameplay experience for other players. If you have no players inside of your game and you will just play against the bots, you will eventually get bored. But if you play against the professional people who love the game, and when I say professional, they've been playing games for quite a while, and they know all of these tricky things that other new beginners would never understand how to use, it's more interesting. It's definitely more interesting, and that's why we have tournaments. So we have Xena. It's not just a free-to-play game, but it also has a function of special tournaments, where you can participate and you can win some valuable assets in the form of NFTs and special robots that eventually you will be able to sell on the NFT marketplace and make a lot of money out of. Not everyone can participate in the tournaments. You have to have a specific level of your robot, which is level 60, I believe. Correct me. It's all in the guide, but I'm sure it's level 60. And if you've reached level 60, then you will be able to access the tournaments, and then you will be able to win these valuable assets and NFTs. As I said, Indian market is huge when it comes to strategies, so there is a good reason for us to promote this game there. Because if we go to another market where people don't really like strategy games too much, I mean, there will be no retention, there will be no metrics that are showing any confidence of users to join the game. Whereas if we go to the market that is highly usable in terms of the strategy games, then the strategy game that we've launched will definitely be among the interests of those players in the local market. So we're gathering a lot of people from all over the world. And I don't necessarily mean everyone is going to play Xena. Xena is designed for the particular community, and we are totally understanding it. So if you don't like playing strategy games, nobody's going to force you to play this game. But we are trying to create a huge selection of games that people can choose from. And any game you play, your entire progress that is attached to the character of any of these games can be transferred to the other game. That's very important. So if you play Xena with your Xena character, and it's having a robot attached to it, and it has some resources attached to it, it has some experience attached to it, and skills attached to it, you can bring it to Tembazar and play a shooter with the same character. You can play a social deduction game with that character. You can play Butler 3 versus 3 with the same character. That's the beauty of SIDUS Heroes, is that all the games we launch, they have a unified lore book, a unified architecture, an ability to be transferred from one place to the other and continue on. The second question about the nodes. So the layer 2, it's still in the development stage. We'll definitely announce if there will be nodes sales in the future, but at this stage, it's not available.
Okay.
Simple answer.
Great question, Eugene. All right. Well, that wraps up our time for this interview. Dan has agreed to stay over for a private chat with our private Patreon members who have access to our private Discord. Dan, thanks so much for joining our audience here on the Crypto Rain channel. This has been extremely informative.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit bad before you could. Was taught to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. But why when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always made the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Made the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. The next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go with the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Made the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on